Good morning and welcome back to Grandma's Kitchen. And as promised yesterday, today we're going to make some homemade white bread. We have 6 cups of flour, 2 packets of yeast, a cup of warm water, which is 110 degrees, a teaspoon and a half of salt, a third of a cup of oil, and a quarter of a cup of sugar, and a cup of warm milk, which is also 110 degrees. To start off with, first we're going to put our warm water into our bowl. We're going to make sure that it cools down because it's just a little bit too warm. We'll let it cool down a little bit. Mix our sugar in and get it melted. Dissolved, actually, what I should have said. Dissolve that sugar. You see I have my mixer, I have a dough hook on it. Let's check the temperature of that water again. And just another minute or so, it should be at the correct temperature. We don't want it too hot because it'll kill the yeast and make it not do what it's supposed to. It has to be activated, and it's going to turn a little bit like foamy, and then you'll know it's all ready. You'll have bubbles and foam on top. And that usually takes about 4 or 5 minutes for it to proof. If you get the fast-acting yeast, you don't have to proof it. You can put it in with your flour. It doesn't need to be proofed. But just active dry yeast, you do have to proof it. So just give this another minute or so. Keep pushing it around, that'll help cool it down some. It's just a little bit too hot. Okay, let's check it again. I'm going to throw this under some cold water and get it down, and then we'll check it. Okay. It has gone down. Let's see where it's at. Okay, we are at a good temperature. We're going to sprinkle the 2 packs of yeast over the top. Give it a little stir. And we're going to let that sit for about 5 or 10 minutes to let it proof. And in the meantime, we'll make sure we have all the rest of our things. Make sure our milk is at 110 degrees. When this is done, we're going to add the sugar, the salt, the oil, and the milk to the mixture, and we're going to let it mix a little bit. And then 1 cup at a time, we're going to put the flour in 1 cup at a time and let it get mixed up good. And then we'll take it out of there and put it on a floured surface, and we'll knead it good till it's nice and smooth. Then we'll put it in a well-oiled bowl. You put it down in there and you turn it over, and then turn it back over so the top is covered with oil also. And you're going to cover it with some plastic and put it in a warm place. I usually set my oven on warm and then turn it off when it gets to that temperature and leave it there. We're going to let it rise for about an hour till it's doubled in size, and then we'll take it out and we're going to punch it down, and we'll knead it a little bit and divide it in half, and we can either make 2 loaves of bread, or we can make 1 loaf of bread and 1 set of dinner rolls, which is what I'm going to do today. So for right now, I'm going to put you on pause, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, our yeast is proofed, and I'm going to lower this camera so you can see what it's supposed to look like when it's proofed. It's all full of, looks like foam, and then you know it's ready. So now we're going to add our salt, our oil, and our milk. Put this back under the mixer. turn it on slow. Lock it, turn it on slow. And now we're going to add a cup of flour at a time. So what I'm going to do is get where's my measuring cup? Oh, here it is. This is a 2/3 cup. Got a little bit of water on it. Let's break that water off so it doesn't stick to the flour. This is a 2/3 cup, so I don't know where my cup measure is, so we're going to go with this one for right now. And we're going to slowly put that flour in there and let it mix good after each addition. That's really an important thing to do, is to let it mix well after each addition of flour to make sure that it is incorporated completely. You can get a rubber spatula, which is what I'm going to get, so just hold on a minute. Let me get my spatula. And you can move the flour that sticks to the sides of your bowl down with your spatula. It makes it a little easier. No, it's going to fall over, right? And we're going to add some more flour. Let it mix up. I know it seems tedious to do it like this, but if you don't, your bread's not going to turn out well. And this really makes a wonderful loaf of bread. It's so good. Our flour is mixing nicely. I think maybe we can start just pouring the flour out of the cup now, because I can see the measure. And maybe it'll go in there a little better. And we'll still use the cup. I want to show you the right way, not the wrong way. Of course, you can mix this by hand too with a wooden spoon if you want, but I'm getting old and I get tired easier. So what I'm going to do, I used my mixer. This was the greatest thing I ever found, that you could make bread with a mixer. That's awesome. Because let me tell you what, it sure is hard to put that dough and mix it when all you have is your arms and your hands and a wooden spoon to mix it. But that's how we used to do it before we had these fancy mixers. We used to do it by hand. Of course, you'd have probably dough all the way up to your elbows most of the time, but oh well, it was fun, Kids always had fun with it too, they'd laugh because Mommy had flour clean up to her elbows and dough. But they loved it because I'd make the bread and make cinnamon rolls to go with it too. So it was always kind of fun. It's coming together nicely over here. Almost there. Put our last cup of flour in. Yeah, some of it spits out at you. Oh well, not enough to worry about. You can clean it up anyway. And once this gets all the dry parts, we're going to turn this mixer up. And we're going to let this just be kneaded and I call it beating it up for a few minutes. Let it come together good, and then we're going to put it out on this board. Put some little flour out here, and we will knead it and then get it in an oiled bowl. Let's put some flour out on this board. I want to put a lot, but not too much, because then it'll my hand. You don't get too much flour in your dough, and you don't want that, because then you're going to have a dry, not so good tasting bread. Let's get this out of here. A little more flour on my hand. And I'm going to put this bowl in the sink and fill it with some hot water and some soap so I can wash it when I'm done kneading the bread, the dough, and then I will use that bowl, oil that bowl, and put the dough back in there to rise. And this is how you knead. You want to just fold it over and push it out, fold it over and push it out, and just keep doing that till it gets nice and smooth and elastic. And I'm going to show you a way to know when it's ready here in just a minute. I'm almost done with this. But the more you knead it, the more gluten it produces. If you want a diabetic bread, you want to use whole wheat flour, which I also have. And it makes a very, very good tasting loaf of bread. And it's a little more diabetic friendly than the white bread. Okay, I think we've got this where it needs to be. Now how you can tell is if you put your finger on it and it pokes back up. It's ready. You gotta leave just a little indentation. Now let's wash this bowl up real quick so that we can oil it and get our bread in the oven to rise. And then when we come back in about an hour, I'm going to show you how to do the bread loaves and the dinner rolls so that you could make them for your family and enjoy them as much as we do. It doesn't take a lot. It's just a little extra work, but who doesn't want to do a little extra work for their family? I know I do. And I enjoy seeing their faces when they get it. And when I make something and they really, really like it. Okay, now we're going to spray this bowl with some oil. Like I told you, I put my oil in a spray bottle. You use way less oil. Now we're going to put this dough in here with this top side down first. I'm going to give it a little spin around and then flip it over, punch it down, wipe my hands and get the plastic wrap out, and we're going to cover it till it doubles in size. Let it in the oven, in that warm oven, to rise. It takes about an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, just depends on your oven and how warm it stays. But this is what it's going to look like. And when it gets up here, or almost to the top, it's doubled. So it's going in the oven now, and we'll be back in a while. One thing I did want to point out is that if you cook and bake, your kitchen can become a real mess. So it's really important to clean as you go. When you got a few minutes, like now, I'm waiting on the bread to rise. So now I'm going to wash up what dishes and utensils I've used. But it does make it for a lot better experience cooking if you don't have a big mess everywhere in your kitchen. I always try to tell my kids that when they're cooking. Make sure you get your kitchen all cleaned up as you go. Because then when dinner's done, you don't have much to do. We'll be back.